Once upon a time in the cozy town of Willowville, there was a young boy named Leo who lived with his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Starling. Leo was a kind and playful child, but sometimes he found it hard to remember to help out around the house and be thoughtful toward his parents. One sunny Saturday morning, Leo's parents were preparing for a big family picnic. They had lots of food to pack and things to organize. Leo wanted to play outside with his friends, but saw how tired his parents looked. He remembered that his mom had said, "Helping out shows that you care." Leo decided he wanted to be a great helper. He started by tidying up the living room without being asked. Then, he carefully packed the picnic basket with sandwiches, fruits, and his parents' favorite lemonade. When he noticed his dad's garden tools lying around, he put them back in their proper place. As Leo worked, he felt proud of himself. He realized that helping made his parents smile and made him feel happy too. When it was time to leave for the picnic, Mr. and Mrs. Starling were amazed by how Leo had organized everything. "Thank you, Leo," they said with big smiles. "You've made our day so much easier." During the picnic, Leo played games and enjoyed the day with his parents, who were full of energy and joy. Leo noticed how happy they were, and he felt warm inside knowing he had made a difference. From that day on, Leo made it a point to help his parents whenever he could. He learned that being a good kid didn't just mean doing what he was told, but also showing love and kindness through his actions. And so, Leo and his parents continued to enjoy their days together, with Leo always ready to lend a helping hand and brighten their lives. Leo was known for his fiery temperament, a trait that often got him into arguments with those he loved most. His quick tongue and stubbornness created rifts in relationships, leaving him feeling isolated and regretful. Despite knowing the pain it caused, Leo found it hard to change his ways. One evening, after a heated argument with his younger sister, Sarah, over something trivial, Leo stormed out of the house. The words they exchanged echoed in his mind, and guilt gnawed at him. He loved his sister dearly, but his anger had once again overshadowed his affection. As Leo walked aimlessly through the quiet streets, he came across a park where he used to play as a child. The swings creaked softly in the breeze, and memories of happier times flooded his mind. Times when arguments were rare and laughter filled the air. Sitting on a bench, Leo reflected on his actions. He realized that his fights weren't just hurting others. They were hurting him, too. He missed the closeness he once shared with his family and friends. He longed for the peace and warmth that had slowly slipped away because of his stubbornness. As he sat there, an elderly man approached and took a seat beside him. The man seemed to sense Leo's turmoil and offered a kind smile. "Troubled, young man?" the elder asked gently. Leo nodded, unsure of how to put his feelings into words. "Let me share something with you," the old man continued. "I once had a temper like yours. It cost me many relationships, and I spent years regretting it. But I learned that the people we love are not permanent fixtures in our lives. Every fight, every harsh word, can push them away for good. Is that what you want?" Leo shook his head. The old man's words struck a chord deep within him. "If you love someone," the man said softly, "you must learn to fight for the relationship, not against it. Apologize when you're wrong, listen when you disagree, and always remember that love is more important than winning any argument." Leo sat in silence, absorbing the wisdom of the elder's words. He knew what he had to do. The next morning, Leo returned home and found Sarah in the kitchen. She glanced at him, her eyes still filled with the hurt from the previous night. Taking a deep breath, Leo approached her. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he said sincerely. "I was wrong to fight with you. You mean the world to me, and I don't want to let my temper come between us." Sarah looked surprised at first, but then smiled softly. "I forgive you, Leo. I miss the way we used to be." From that day forward, Leo made a conscious effort to change. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when his old habits resurfaced. But each time, he remembered the old man's words and chose love over pride. Leo's relationships slowly healed, and he found that the more he let go of his need to be right, the closer he became to those he cared about. He learned that love wasn't about never disagreeing. It was about handling disagreements with respect and understanding. In the end, Leo realized that the true strength in any relationship lies in the ability to apologize, forgive, and move forward together. And in doing so, he found a deeper sense of peace and happiness than he had ever known. In a cozy neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia, there lived a young boy named Leo. Leo was no ordinary kid. At just 10 years old, he was known throughout his community for his excellent hygiene and respect for others, especially the elders. Leo's day began early every morning. As soon as the sun peeked through his bedroom window, he would jump out of bed and make it neatly, smoothing out every wrinkle on the sheets. His room was a picture of tidiness, with books arranged on the shelves, toys stored in their proper places, and his clothes hung neatly in the closet. After making his bed, Leo would head to the bathroom. He was meticulous about brushing his teeth, making sure to reach every corner of his mouth. He would wash his face with care, ensuring that he was clean and fresh for the day ahead. Leo understood the importance of taking care of his body, and it showed in the way he carried himself. At breakfast, Leo was always polite. He would thank his parents for the meal and offer to help clean up afterward. It was a small gesture, but one that his parents appreciated. They had taught Leo the value of respect from a young age, and he had taken their lessons to heart. When Leo went outside to play, he was the kind of kid everyone wanted to be around. He greeted the neighbors with a warm smile and a respectful "Good morning, ma'am," or "Good afternoon, sir." The elders in the community were especially fond of Leo. He would often stop by to help them with small tasks, like carrying groceries or mowing their lawns. Leo didn't do these things for praise or reward. He did them because it was the right thing to do. One afternoon, Mrs. Jenkins, an elderly lady who lived down the street, needed help with her garden. Her back was aching, and she found it hard to bend down to tend to her flowers. Leo noticed her struggling as he passed by on his way home from school. "Hello, Mrs. Jenkins," Leo called out, walking over to her. "Would you like some help with your garden?" Mrs. Jenkins smiled warmly at Leo. "Oh, that would be lovely, Leo. Thank you so much." Leo spent the next hour carefully weeding the garden, watering the plants, and making sure everything looked just right. Mrs. Jenkins watched with gratitude in her eyes. "You're such a good boy, Leo," she said when he was finished. "Your parents have raised you well." Leo blushed and shook his head modestly. "It's just what anyone would do, Mrs. Jenkins." As Leo walked home that day, he felt a warm glow of satisfaction. It wasn't the praise that made him happy, but the knowledge that he had made someone's day a little brighter. Leo's respectfulness and good hygiene became an example for other kids in the neighborhood. His friends started keeping their rooms tidy, brushing their teeth twice a day, and being more polite to their elders. Leo didn't set out to be a role model, but his actions spoke louder than any words could.
In a remote, snow-covered village in Alaska, the Christmas season was always a time of wonder. The days were short, the nights long, but the darkness was chased away by the warm glow of lights and the spirit of the people who called this place home. The cold air was crisp and fresh, carrying the scent of pine trees and the promise of something magical. In the heart of this small village lived a boy named Leo. Leo loved Christmas more than anything else in the world. He adored the northern lights that danced across the night sky, the way the snow sparkled under the moonlight, and the cozy warmth of his family's log cabin. But more than anything, Leo loved the way Christmas brought people together. Every year, Leo and his family would travel by dog sled to the nearest town to gather supplies and gifts for the holiday. The journey was long and sometimes treacherous, but Leo always looked forward to it. The townspeople knew Leo well, and they would greet him with warm smiles and stories of Christmases past. But this year was different. The village had faced a particularly harsh winter, and many families were struggling. Some had lost their homes to heavy snowfalls, while others were running low on food and fuel. Leo knew that this Christmas wouldn't be the same for everyone, and it made his heart ache. As he sat by the fire one evening, watching the flames dance, Leo had an idea. What if he could bring Christmas to those who needed it most? What if he could find a way to make sure everyone in the village felt the warmth and joy of the holiday? With determination in his heart, Leo got to work. He began by going through his own things, gathering toys and books he no longer needed. He asked his parents if they could spare some extra food and blankets. They didn't have much, but they were more than willing to help. Together, they packed a sled with supplies, ready to be delivered to those in need. But Leo knew he couldn't do it alone. So, he spoke with his friends and neighbors, sharing his plan to bring Christmas cheer to every home in the village. At first, some were hesitant. After all, everyone was struggling. But Leo's enthusiasm was infectious. Soon, people were offering what little they could spare. A few logs for the fire, homemade bread, knitted scarves, and mittens. As word spread, more and more people joined in. The local fishermen donated freshly caught fish, the carpenter made wooden toys, and the schoolteacher helped the children make decorations and cards filled with holiday wishes. The entire village came together, each person contributing something. On Christmas Eve, Leo and his friends, bundled up in thick coats and fur-lined boots, set out on their sleds to deliver the gifts. The snow crunched beneath them as they made their way from house to house. At each stop, they were met with gratitude and smiles, with tears of joy and heartfelt thanks. Families who had been worried about how they would make it through the winter now felt a renewed sense of hope and community. As the night wore on, the northern lights began to appear in the sky, shimmering in shades of green, blue, and purple. Leo and his friends returned to the center of the village, where the townspeople had gathered around a large bonfire. The village elder, a wise and gentle woman, stepped forward to address the crowd. "Tonight," she said, "we have witnessed the true spirit of Christmas. It is not about the gifts we receive, but about the love and kindness we share with one another."
Leo was a student at a small school in a quiet town in Georgia. Surrounded by tall oak trees and winding country roads, the school was a warm and friendly place where everyone knew each other. The teachers cared deeply about their students, and the children enjoyed learning and playing together. Leo, in particular, was known for being one of the most dedicated and thoughtful students in his class. Every morning, Leo would arrive at school early, his backpack neatly organized, and his homework always completed. He loved learning and took his education seriously. Whether it was math, reading, science, or history, Leo approached each subject with curiosity and a strong desire to understand more. He knew that knowledge was a key that could unlock endless possibilities. One day, Mrs. Thompson, Leo's teacher, announced that the class would be working on a big project. Each student was to choose a topic they were passionate about and create a presentation to share with the class. The project would take several weeks to complete and would require research, creativity, and a lot of hard work. Leo was thrilled. He loved projects because they allowed him to explore subjects in depth. After thinking it over, Leo decided to focus on the history of Georgia, particularly the civil rights movement, which had always fascinated him. Growing up in Georgia, Leo had heard many stories about the brave individuals who fought for equality, and he wanted to learn more about their struggles and triumphs. Leo began his project by visiting the local library, where he checked out books about the civil rights movement. He spent hours reading about figures like Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, and others. He took detailed notes and even visited a nearby museum to see artifacts and exhibits related to his topic. As the weeks went by, Leo worked tirelessly on his project. He created a detailed timeline of important events, including the Montgomery bus boycott and the March on Washington. He also made a poster filled with photos and quotes from key leaders of the movement. To bring his presentation to life, Leo practiced his speech, making sure to convey the importance of the civil rights movement in a way his classmates could understand. While Leo was busy with his project, he also made sure to help his friends with theirs. Some of his classmates found it difficult to choose a topic or organize their research. Leo would sit with them during recess or after school, offering advice and encouraging them to keep going. He never did their work for them, but he was always there to support them and boost their confidence. Finally, the day of the presentations arrived. The classroom was buzzing with excitement as the students set up their projects and prepared to share what they had learned. Leo felt a mix of nerves and anticipation, but he knew he had done his best and was ready to share his work. When it was his turn, Leo stood in front of the class and began his presentation. Leo spoke clearly and with passion, guiding his classmates through the history of the civil rights movement in Georgia. He pointed to his timeline, explained the significance of the events, and shared the powerful stories of those who had fought for equality. His classmates listened intently, and even Mrs. Thompson looked impressed. When Leo finished, the room erupted in applause. Mrs. Thompson smiled warmly at him. "That was outstanding, Leo," she said. "You not only taught us about an important part of our history, but you also showed us the power of dedication and the importance of understanding our past." Well done. Leo felt a deep sense of pride, not just because of the praise, but because he had shared something meaningful with his classmates. After the presentations, some of his friends came up to him with more questions about the civil rights movement. Leo was happy to answer and share what he had learned. As the school day ended, Mrs. Thompson gathered the class together. "Remember," she said, "being a good student isn't just about getting good grades. It's about being curious, working hard, and helping others along the way." Leo showed us that today, and I hope you all continue to learn with the same passion and kindness. Leo left school that day feeling proud and fulfilled. He knew that being a good student was about more than just the results. It was about the journey of learning, the satisfaction of hard work, and the joy of helping others succeed. And he was ready for whatever new challenges and adventures awaited him in the future. Leo had always been a friendly and easygoing teenager living in Georgia. He had a lot of friends and was well liked by everyone at school. However, Leo had one flaw that often got him into trouble. He had a habit of borrowing money from his friends and not paying them back. It wasn't that he didn't want to, he just wasn't good at keeping track of what he owed, and he always figured his friends wouldn't mind. One day, Leo's best friend, Marcus, lent him $50 to buy a video game that Leo had been eager to get. Marcus didn't hesitate to help out, trusting that Leo would pay him back as soon as he could. But weeks went by, and Leo didn't mention the money. Marcus didn't want to seem pushy, so he waited, hoping Leo would remember on his own. As time passed, Leo continued to borrow small amounts of money from other friends, $10 here, $20 there, promising to pay them back soon. But he never did. Eventually, his friends started to get frustrated. They began to feel like Leo was taking advantage of their kindness. One afternoon, Leo's friends invited him to go to a new movie that everyone had been talking about. Excited, Leo agreed, but when they got to the theater, he realized he didn't have enough money for the ticket. He turned to Marcus, expecting him to help out as usual. But this time, Marcus looked at Leo with a serious expression and said, "I'm sorry, Leo, but I can't keep lending you money. You haven't paid me back for the game, and it's not fair to keep borrowing from everyone without returning what you owe." Leo was taken aback. He hadn't realized how much he had been relying on his friends for money. He felt embarrassed as the rest of the group looked at him with disappointment in their eyes. Feeling ashamed, Leo decided to leave the theater and walk home alone. As he walked, he thought about how his actions had hurt his friendships. He realized that by not paying back what he owed, he was breaking the trust his friends had placed in him. The next day at school, Leo noticed that his friends were distant. They weren't ignoring him, but the easygoing camaraderie they once shared had faded. Leo felt guilty and knew he needed to make things right. Determined to fix his mistake, Leo went home and gathered all the money he had saved from odd jobs and allowances. It wasn't much, but it was a start. He made a list of everyone he owed money to and began paying them back, one by one. For those he couldn't repay immediately, he apologized sincerely and promised to make it up to them as soon as possible. When Leo reached Marcus, he handed him the $50 he owed and said, "I'm really sorry, Marcus. I took your friendship for granted, and I shouldn't have. I promise I'll never let this happen again." Marcus smiled and accepted the money. "Thanks, Leo. I appreciate you making things right. Just remember, it's important to keep your word, especially with friends." Leo had always been a thoughtful and compassionate teenager, but as he grew older, he began to notice the many challenges facing the world. From pollution and deforestation to social inequality and animal extinction, the problem seemed overwhelming. But instead of feeling helpless, Leo felt a strong urge to do something about it. He wanted to make the world a better place, not just for himself, but for every living being, humans, animals, and plants alike. One day, his teacher, Mrs. Green, assigned the class a project. Think about how you can make a positive impact on the world and create a plan to put your ideas into action. Leo was excited. He knew this was his chance to inspire others to join him in making a difference. Leo spent the next few days brainstorming ideas. He thought about all the things he'd learned over the years about the environment, about kindness, and about the power of community. He wanted to come up with a plan that was simple enough for everyone to follow, but powerful enough to create real change. Finally, Leo came up with a plan, which he called the 5 Steps to a Better World. He decided to share his ideas with his friends, family, and community. Leo knew that protecting the environment was crucial. He encouraged people to reduce waste by recycling, composting, and using reusable items like water bottles and shopping bags. He also talked about the importance of conserving water and electricity, planting trees, and protecting wildlife habitats. He organized a community cleanup day at the local park, where everyone pitched in to pick up litter and plant new trees. The event was a huge success, and people started to see how small actions could make a big difference. Leo believed that a better world began with how we treat each other. He reminded people that everyone is fighting their own battles, and a little kindness can go a long way. He started a Random Acts of Kindness campaign at school, encouraging students to help others without expecting anything in return. Whether it was holding the door open for someone, sharing a lunch, or simply offering a smile, these small acts of kindness began to create a more positive and supportive atmosphere at school. Leo was passionate about social justice and equality. He urged people to speak up against bullying, racism, and injustice whenever they saw it. He organized discussions at school where students could talk about issues like discrimination and inequality and brainstorm ways to promote inclusivity. Leo also encouraged his friends to support causes they cared about, whether it was volunteering at a local shelter or donating to a charity. Leo understood the importance of strong, connected communities. He encouraged people to shop locally, support small businesses, and participate in community events. He also helped organize a neighborhood swap meet, where people could trade items they no longer needed instead of throwing them away. This not only reduced waste, but also brought the community closer together. Leo knew that to make lasting change, people needed to be informed and inspired. He created a blog where he shared tips on living sustainably, practicing kindness, and getting involved in the community. Leo knew that to make lasting change, people needed to be informed and inspired. He created a blog where he shared tips on living sustainably, practicing kindness, and getting involved in the community. He also started giving talks at school and community centers, encouraging others to join him in his mission. Leo's enthusiasm was contagious, and soon, more and more people were getting involved. As time passed, Leo's efforts began to have a ripple effect. His school became more environmentally conscious, with students organizing recycling drives and reducing their carbon footprint. The community grew stronger, with people coming together to support each other and tackle local issues. And perhaps most importantly, Leo's message of kindness and empathy spread, leading to a more positive and inclusive environment for everyone. Leo realized that making the world a better place wasn't about grand gestures or solving all the world's problems at once. It was about taking small, meaningful actions every day and inspiring others to do the same. By living by his own principles and encouraging others to join him, Leo had set in motion a wave of change that reached far beyond what he had ever imagined. He had shown that anyone, no matter their age or background, could make a difference. And in doing so, he had made the world a better place for every living being. Leo was known around his small Georgia town as a natural leader, someone others admired for his confidence and kindness. At 17, he was a senior in high school, balancing classes, sports, and community activities with ease. But what set him apart wasn't just his stellar academic record or his athletic achievements. It was his unwavering stance on living a life free from drugs and alcohol. In a town where parties often revolved around drinking and experimentation with substances, Leo stood firm in his choices. His personal journey began when his older brother, Josh, struggled with addiction, a path that almost tore their family apart. Leo saw firsthand the pain it caused not only to his brother, but to everyone who loved him. Determined not to let the same happen to him or his friends, Leo made it his mission to influence others to steer clear of those temptations. One afternoon, during a school assembly on the dangers of substance abuse, Leo volunteered to speak. As he stepped up to the microphone, the room fell silent. "I know many of you think that drugs and alcohol are just part of being a teenager," he began, looking around at the familiar faces in the crowd. "But I've seen what it can do, what it's done to my brother. It's not just a statistic or a scary story they tell you to keep you in line. It's real." He paused, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Josh was like all of us once, full of dreams, good grades, a future ahead of him. But one bad choice led to another. Before we knew it, he was spiraling. He lost so much: friends, trust, and opportunities." Leo's words struck a chord with the students. He wasn't preaching or lecturing. He was speaking from experience, sharing a piece of his life in the hope of making a difference. "I get it," he continued. "Peer pressure is hard. It feels like everyone's doing it. And if you don't, you'll be left out. But you can say no. You can be different and still be respected." After the assembly, several students approached Leo, thanking him for his speech. Some even opened up about their own struggles or concerns about friends and family. Leo didn't judge or push them. He simply listened and offered support. Word spread quickly about Leo's message, and soon, he became a role model for others. He started a peer support group where students could talk openly about their challenges and fears regarding drugs and alcohol. The group wasn't about perfection or always making the right choice. It was about being honest, supportive, and accountable to one another. Over time, Leo's influence began to shift the culture at his school. It wasn't just about not doing drugs or avoiding alcohol. It was about creating a community where people felt they didn't need those things to belong. He empowered others to find strength in saying no, in choosing a path that valued their future over temporary highs. By the time graduation rolled around, Leo had helped countless students rethink their decisions about substance use. His impact extended far beyond his town, as he was invited to speak at neighboring schools and even some community events. Leo's journey wasn't about perfection or having all the answers. It was about choosing to be different in a world where following the crowd was easier. His story, rooted in personal experience and a deep love for those around him, reminded everyone that the choices they made today could shape the rest of their lives. Leo was a curious and energetic high school student living in Georgia. Like many teenagers, he loved eating fast food, snacks, and sugary drinks. However, he often felt sluggish and had trouble focusing in class. His parents noticed his lack of energy and suggested he learn more about eating a balanced diet. One day, Leo's health teacher, Mrs. Johnson, announced a new assignment. Each student had to research the benefits of a balanced diet and create a meal plan that included all the essential vitamins and nutrients. Leo wasn't too thrilled at first, but he was determined to do well in the project. Leo started his research by visiting the local library and reading about different food groups. He learned that a balanced diet includes fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats. He discovered that each food group provided different nutrients essential for the body's growth and maintenance. He found out that fruits and vegetables, these are rich in vitamins like vitamin C and A, which boost the immune system and promote healthy skin and vision. They also provide fiber, which aids digestion and helps keep the body full longer. Whole grains foods like brown rice, whole wheat bread, and oats are excellent sources of fiber, B vitamins, and minerals like iron and magnesium. These nutrients help in maintaining energy levels and supporting metabolism. Lean proteins, chicken, fish, beans, and nuts are great sources of protein, which is essential for building and repairing tissues. Proteins also provide essential amino acids that the body cannot produce on its own. Healthy fats foods like avocados, nuts, and olive oil contain healthy fats, such as omega-3 fatty acids, which support brain health and reduce inflammation. As Leo learned more, he realized how important it was to eat a variety of foods to get all the nutrients his body needed. He started experimenting with different recipes at home. He made a colorful salad with spinach, carrots, and grilled chicken, topped with a homemade olive oil dressing. He also tried making oatmeal with fresh berries and a sprinkle of nuts for breakfast. Leo noticed that after a week of eating more balanced meals, he felt more energetic. His concentration in school improved, and he was able to stay active during soccer practice. Mrs. Johnson even complimented him on his work and shared his meal plan as an example for the class. Over time, Leo became passionate about healthy eating. He started helping his mom with grocery shopping, picking out fresh fruits and vegetables, and trying new recipes together. He also shared what he learned with his friends, encouraging them to make healthier food choices. Leo's journey to understanding the benefits of a balanced diet not only improved his health, but also inspired those around him to take better care of their bodies. He realized that food wasn't just about satisfying hunger. It was about fueling his body with the right nutrients to help him live his best life. Leo always had a passion for learning, a thirst for knowledge that never seemed to be quenched. As a student at a university in Georgia, he was known for his sharp wit and insightful contributions in class. But Leo's true strength lay not in his intelligence, but in his unwavering compassion and sense of justice. One fall semester, his life changed when he met 3 new students who would inspire him in ways he had never imagined. Maya had been blind since birth. Despite her disability, she had an incredible ability to see the world in ways that most people could never grasp. Her hands painted vivid pictures in the air as she described the scent of rain or the feeling of sunlight on her skin. Maya navigated the campus with the aid of her cane, but it was her spirit that truly guided her through life. Then there was Isaac, a sophomore who had been in a car accident that left him paralyzed from the waist down. His wheelchair, once a symbol of defeat, had become a chariot that carried him forward with determination. Isaac didn't want pity, he wanted equality. He wanted the world to understand that his disability didn't define him, his mind and heart did. Finally, there was Ella, an amputee who had lost her leg in a childhood accident. Despite the trauma, Ella had become a marathon runner, using her prosthetic leg to push the limits of what others thought possible. Her resilience was a testament to her unbreakable spirit. Ella radiated positivity, but behind her bright smile was a fierce advocate for disability awareness and inclusion. Leo watched these three individuals navigate the world, often noticing how society overlooked or underestimated them. He saw how people would speak to Maya loudly, as if her blindness affected her hearing. He noticed how Isaac was excluded from activities simply because they weren't designed with accessibility in mind. He saw the stares Ella received when she ran, as if her prosthetic made her less human. One day, Leo decided enough was enough. He organized a campus event titled The Light Within, Stories of Strength and Resilience. The event would highlight the stories of people with disabilities, not as objects of pity, but as beacons of inspiration. Leo worked closely with Maya, Isaac, and Ella to create a powerful narrative that would change perceptions. Maya spoke about the beauty she experienced in the world without sight, describing how her heightened senses allowed her to experience life in ways others might overlook. Isaac shared his journey of accepting his spinal cord injury, emphasizing the importance of accessibility and independence. Ella captivated the audience with her story of loss, recovery, and the fierce willpower that led her to run marathons. But Leo didn't stop there. He pushed for policy changes at the university, advocating for better accessibility on campus. He proposed the idea of inclusivity training for staff and students, so they would better understand the needs and strengths of individuals with disabilities. The event was a success, but more importantly, it ignited a movement. Students began to realize that people like Maya, Isaac, and Ella were not defined by their disabilities, but by their courage, strength, and humanity. The campus became more inclusive, with new ramps, more braille signage, and better accommodations for all students. Leo's initiative spread beyond the university, sparking discussions in the wider community about how society can be more inclusive. People began to recognize that those with disabilities weren't asking for special treatment. They were asking for equal treatment. They were asking to be seen, to be heard, and to be valued for who they were. The world around Leo started to change. Little by little, more voices joined the movement, and soon the message spread. Disabilities do not define people, their spirit does. Leo sat in the corner of his room, staring at his textbooks. The quiet hum of a Georgia afternoon filtered through his open window, but his mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. Tomorrow was the deadline for his college applications, and Leo was paralyzed by the weight of one crucial decision. What should he major in? It wasn't that Leo lacked options, quite the opposite. He excelled in almost everything he tried: math, art, science, and sports. But each path led to an entirely different life. Should he pursue engineering, something practical and well-paying? Or should he follow his passion for painting, even though it offered no guarantees of stability? His mother knocked lightly on the door before entering. "Leo, you've been in here all day. Are you okay?" "I don't know, Mom. I'm just scared of making the wrong choice. What if I choose something that messes up my future?" She sat down beside him, a knowing smile on her face. When I was your age, I had the same fear. I worried that every decision I made would lead to failure or regret. But here's the thing about choices, Leo. It's not just about picking the right or wrong one. It's about committing to the choice you make and making it the best one for you. Leo looked up, curious. "What do you mean?" "Every choice you make shapes your future. Yes, but it also shapes you. Life isn't a straight line. It's a series of bends and turns, sometimes even detours. What matters is how you navigate those turns. If you choose with intention, with a clear understanding of what makes you happy and fulfilled, you're already setting yourself up for a future that reflects the best of who you are." Leo thought about it for a while. His mother was right. Every path came with its own challenges and rewards. The key wasn't to fear the choices, but to embrace them. The next day, as Leo stood in front of his laptop, ready to submit his college applications, he felt more confident. He chose engineering as his major, not because it was the safest or most predictable option, but because he saw the endless opportunities to apply creativity and problem solving in the field. He also decided to minor in art so he could continue nurturing his passion. Over the next few years, Leo's choices unfolded in ways he hadn't expected. He discovered a love for designing innovative solutions that combined engineering with artistic expression. His college journey wasn't without its challenges. There were moments of doubt and frustration, but each choice he made led him to become a well-rounded, fulfilled individual. In the end, Leo learned that the power of choice wasn't about avoiding mistakes. It was about being intentional, knowing that even the hardest decisions can lead to a positive future if approached with the right mindset. And as he walked across the graduation stage, he realized that every choice, big or small, had led him to a future where he could look back without regret. Leo had always taken pride in being a responsible driver. Every morning before heading out, he made a habit of thoroughly checking his car. He'd start by inspecting the tires, making sure they were properly inflated and free of any sharp objects. Then, he'd pop the hood to ensure all the fluids were at the right levels: oil, coolant, and windshield washer fluid. He even tested the lights and blinkers, all part of his commitment to safety. Leo believed that following the rules of the road was not just about avoiding tickets, but about protecting himself and others. He always used a seatbelt, kept to the speed limit, and maintained a safe distance from the car in front of him. His hands were always at 10 and 2 on the wheel, and he made sure to use his turn signals long before making a move. He understood that staying focused on the road was the key to preventing accidents. Occasionally, Leo would get pulled over for random checks or minor issues like a broken taillight. When that happened, he remained calm and respectful. He knew that police officers had a tough job, working to keep the community safe and enforce laws that often went unnoticed by most drivers. Whenever an officer approached his window, Leo greeted them politely with a smile. "Good afternoon, officer." He handed over his license and registration without a fuss, keeping his hands visible on the steering wheel. He knew they appreciated his cooperation. "Thank you for being so calm and cooperative," one officer once told him after a routine stop for a small speeding violation. "It makes our job a lot easier." Leo nodded. "I know you're just doing your job, and I respect that. It's not an easy one." Leo's approach to driving and interacting with law enforcement wasn't just about avoiding trouble. It was about contributing to a safer community. He believed that a little courtesy and following the rules went a long way in making the roads safer for everyone. Leo sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by his 3 children, Ava, Lucas, and Noah. It was one of those rare, quiet evenings when he could gather them together for a heart-to-heart conversation. Tonight, he wanted to teach them about 3 important values: empathy, resilience, and guidance. "Kids," Leo began, "I want to talk to you about how we treat others and handle tough situations." Ava, the oldest at 10, looked curious. "What do you mean, Dad?" "Let's start with empathy," Leo said. "It's about understanding how others feel. Like when Lucas fell off his bike last week, and you, Ava, rushed to help him. That's empathy, recognizing someone's pain and wanting to alleviate it." Lucas, who was 8, nodded, remembering the incident clearly. "And what's resilience?" he asked. "Resilience is about bouncing back from setbacks," Leo explained. "Remember when your school project didn't go as planned, Lucas? You felt upset, but you didn't give up. Instead, you worked even harder and finished it. That's resilience." Noah, the youngest at 6, looked thoughtful. "And what's the last one, Dad? Guidance?" "Yes, Noah," Leo replied. "Guidance is about helping others find their way. Think about how you ask Ava for help with your homework. She guides you by showing you the right way to solve problems." Ava smiled proudly at this. Leo continued, "These values, empathy, resilience, and guidance, are important because they help us navigate life and support each other. When we understand how others feel, bounce back from challenges, and help each other find a way. We become stronger as a family. The children listened intently, absorbing their father's words. Leo felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing he had planted the seeds of crucial values in their young minds. He knew that understanding and living by these values would not only make them better people, but also strengthen the bond between them as siblings. As they finished their conversation, Leo smiled, feeling hopeful about the future. He knew that his children would grow up to be empathetic, resilient, and guiding individuals, making the world a better place one step at a time. Leo sat in the back row of his Economics 101 class, tapping his pencil against his notebook. He had always been a good student, but the concepts of needs versus wants and assets versus liabilities seemed more abstract than anything he had learned before. His professor's voice echoed in his ears. Understanding these differences is essential for personal growth, success, and happiness. Later that day, as Leo headed home through the quiet streets of Georgia, he couldn't help but reflect on his own life. His mind wandered to the newest gaming console he'd been saving for. Was that a need or a want? He had enough money for it, but should he be using that money for something more important? At dinner, Leo brought up the topic with his parents. His mom smiled, wiping her hands on her apron, and said, "Wants are things we desire but don't need to survive. You might want that new console, but do you need it? That's the question you need to ask." His dad chimed in, "And don't forget about liabilities versus assets. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket, while an asset puts money in." Leo's eyes widened. So, like a car can be both, right? If it helps you get to work and earn money, it's an asset. But if you're paying for it and it's draining your savings, it's a liability. Exactly, his dad nodded. And learning to prioritize is key. What's really important and what's just a distraction? That conversation stuck with Leo for weeks. He started noticing how much he spent on small things, fast food, new shoes he didn't really need, that console still lingering in his mind. As a student, he realized how easily his money and time slipped away on things that didn't matter in the long run. One afternoon, Leo's best friend, Marcus, invited him out for a weekend trip. It sounded fun, but Leo was deep in thought. He had just gotten a job to help pay for college, and while a trip with friends was tempting, he wondered if it was really the best use of his money. Maybe next time, Leo said, surprising himself. Later that week, Leo spoke with his professor about the concepts he had been grappling with. She smiled and said, "You're learning that real-life economics isn't just about money, Leo. It's about managing your time, energy, and resources. Priorities are what guide you to invest wisely, not just financially, but in every aspect of your life." Leo began setting goals for himself. He created a budget, separating his needs, like tuition and books, from his wants like trips and gadgets. He also started to see how studying and building good habits were assets, things that would pay off in the long run. Months passed, and Leo felt more in control of his life. He still enjoyed himself, but he made smarter choices. He learned that balance was key, understanding when to have fun and when to focus. His ability to distinguish between needs and wants, assets and liabilities, and to prioritize wisely became the foundation for his success. Leo had realized that his true assets weren't material things. They were his education, his relationships, and the lessons he had learned about life. And that gaming console? It could wait. Leo sat on the steps of his college dorm, gazing at the sunset. His mind wandered to his friendships and relationships, wondering how to balance it all: school, work, and maintaining strong connections. He had been feeling distant from some of his friends lately, and his relationship with Emma, his girlfriend, seemed tense. It wasn't like him to struggle with this, but the busy college life in Georgia had taken its toll. That evening, after finishing his assignments, Leo decided to reach out to Marcus, his best friend since high school. They hadn't hung out in weeks, and Leo missed the easy conversations they used to have. Hey man, it's been a while, Leo texted. You free to grab coffee tomorrow? The next afternoon, Leo and Marcus sat in a quiet cafe, catching up on everything from schoolwork to their plans for the weekend. Marcus seemed a little reserved, and Leo noticed it right away. You alright? You seem kinda off, Leo asked, sipping his coffee. Marcus shrugged, looking down at his cup. I've just been thinking, we used to hang out all the time, and now it feels like we only see each other when we run into each other on campus. Leo paused, realizing how much he'd let things slide. You're right, man. I've been caught up in my own stuff, but that's not an excuse. You're my best friend, and I don't want that to change. Marcus nodded, appreciating the honesty. It's cool. I get it, but yeah, friendships take effort too. Leo thought about that on the walk back to his dorm. Relationships, whether with friends or a girlfriend, required more than just showing up every now and then. They needed attention, communication, and respect. That night, he decided to sit down with Emma and talk about their relationship too. Emma had been distant lately, and Leo knew he wasn't giving her the time she deserved. Between studying and working part-time, he hadn't prioritized their relationship. When they met for dinner, Leo decided to be open about his feelings. Emma, I've been thinking a lot about us. I know I haven't been as present lately, and I don't want you to feel like I'm taking you for granted. Emma looked surprised but relieved. I've noticed that too. I miss how we used to spend more time together, just talking or doing fun things. I get that we're both busy, but I want to feel like we're still connected. Leo smiled, feeling lighter. You're right. Let's plan things better. Even if we're both swamped, I want to make time for you, because you're important to me. From that day on, Leo became more intentional about keeping his friendships and relationships strong. Here's what he learned along the way. 1. Communication is key. Leo realized that whether it was with Marcus or Emma, communication had to be consistent. He made an effort to check in with his friends regularly, even if it was just a quick message to see how they were doing. With Emma, he became more open about his feelings and made sure they talked about any issues before they became bigger problems. 2. Quality over quantity. Leo couldn't spend hours every day with everyone, but he learned that the quality of time mattered more than the quantity. Instead of just sitting around or scrolling through his phone when he was with Emma or his friends, he engaged with them, talking, laughing, and really being present in the moment. 3. Make plans and stick to them. Leo started scheduling regular coffee meetups with Marcus and date nights with Emma. Even if his schedule was packed, having set plans helped him prioritize his relationships. It showed his friends and girlfriend that he valued them and was willing to make time for them.